welcome to this episode of Cooking with Kayla. I'm Kayla, one of the registered dietitian nutritionists here at San Antonio Regional Hospital. And today we're making a quinoa salad with creamy cilantro dressing. It's a creamy, savory mix of quinoa, beans, corn, and avocado in a creamy homemade cilantro dressing. It tastes great right away, or you can transform it into a salad by pairing it with greens, wrap it up in a burrito, or use it as a dip. So the first step is to make our creamy cilantro dressing. We start with cilantro. I have about half a cup of cilantro here. What I did is I just pulled the cilantro leaves off from the stem, about half a cup. And I always like to point out my little tip. I like to store my cilantro in a jar with a little bit of water at the bottom, and you can keep it in the refrigerator, kind of like you would store flowers, but in the refrigerator, and that way it stays a little bit longer, so you can use the cilantro for another recipe. So I have about half a cup of cilantro leaves here. I'm gonna add that into the blender. Next, we're gonna add about a quarter cup of Greek yogurt. I like to do the 2% fat Greek yogurt. If you're watching your calories, you could go down to the 0%, or if you wanted it to be extra creamy, you could certainly use a higher fat Greek yogurt. We wanna use about a quarter cup, which is about half of one of these individual serving containers. And you could add more or less depending on how thick you want your dressing to be, but I find that about a quarter cup works really well. Greek yogurt is great because it's high in protein and it's lower in carbohydrates than some of the other yogurts. You just want to make sure that you get the plain one. We don't want to have some strange fruit flavors in here, right? Next, we're going to add in 1 tablespoon of olive oil. Olive oil is rich in monounsaturated fatty acids, and those are very heart healthy. So we're just putting a tablespoon in there. Next, we have 1 lime juice, which gives you about 1.5 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons of lime. And that's gonna add some brightness to the dressing, and it's also gonna help to keep all of our ingredients, especially the avocado that we're adding in the salad later, keep it nice and fresh and keep it from browning a little bit longer. We're gonna add 1 clove of garlic. I like to mince it ahead of time just so that there's a little less work that my blender needs to do. Add that in, my clean hands of course. We have 1/4 teaspoon of cumin, which adds a warm, earthy flavor to this. Add all of that in, and now 1/4 teaspoon of salt, just to round out all the flavors. And we're gonna blend this until it's nice and creamy. So our dressing is finished, and I've laid out all of our ingredients to make the rest of our salad. I like to put my dressing into a little jar. You could totally make this a day in advance and store it in the refrigerator. I also forgot to mention that if you're plant-based, you could use silken tofu or a plant-based yogurt instead of the Greek yogurt for this dressing. If your blender isn't super high-powered, I know mine had a little bit of trouble blending up those cilantro leaves, you could go ahead and chop those ahead of time and or add a little bit more liquid to the mix, maybe a little extra olive oil, a little more lime juice, or even just some water or milk to help that blending process go along a little smoother. So we're gonna start our salad with quinoa. Quinoa I have here in the bowl. I have the tricolor kind. It also comes in just a white quinoa. And we wanna use about 1/2 cup of plain dry quinoa, which cooks up to 1.5 cups. So to cook the quinoa, you would have 1/2 cup of the dry quinoa, add it in with about 1 cup of liquid, bring it to a boil on the stove. And then once it's at a boil, you want to bring the heat down until it comes to just a simmer. Let it simmer for about 15 minutes until all of the water is absorbed. And then you take it off the heat, put a lid on, and let it kind of finish steaming. And when it's finished, the quinoa will have a little curly cue that sticks out. That's actually the germ that's coming out of the seed, and you know that it's done. You can just fluff it up with the fork and you're good to go. I like to make a big batch and just use, 1.5 cups for this recipe, but then you would have extra for another recipe for later. Or you could just make enough to make this recipe, totally up to you. They also make a frozen kind of the quinoa, so you wouldn't even have to cook it yourself. So you can check the freezer section of your grocery store and see if they have the pre-cooked quinoa available. Quinoa is great because it's higher in the protein and fiber than brown rice, and so it's a little bit more nutrient dense. It has lots of vitamins and minerals. It's a great thing to try. It's treated like a whole grain even though it's a seed. So we've got our quinoa in, that's the star of the dish. And then we have one 15-ounce can of low sodium black beans. I drained them and I also rinsed them. If you don't like black beans, you could use any bean that you like, of course. Next, we have 1 cup of corn. Corn is considered a starchy vegetable because it's higher in carbohydrates than some other vegetables. Today I'm using frozen corn that I defrosted in the refrigerator overnight. You could also use fresh corn that you had left over from maybe your barbecue that you had last night, or you could use canned corn too. Just make sure that you drain it. And so if you didn't want to use corn, if you're maybe watching your carbohydrates, you could use a different kind of vegetable that you like, maybe a red bell pepper or pico de gallo, up to you. And then we're gonna add in 1/4 of a red onion, which gives you about ½ a cup of red onion. I diced mine up, but you could do little slices if you wanted to be extra fancy. We're gonna add that in, and the red onion is gonna add a lot of really pretty color to our dish. Look how fancy this looks, all these colors in here. It's gonna add a little bit of color to the dish. It's also adding some extra bite to the dish. If you were to refrigerate this overnight, then the red onion doesn't have as big of a bite. The flavor's a little bit more mellow. Then lastly, we're gonna add 1 avocado. It's gonna be moment of truth to see what our avocado looks like inside. I always like to cut my avocado with a butter knife because they are very soft and you do not want to get injured cutting an avocado. So I just cut around. Hey, we hit the jackpot. This looks like a good one. Avocados are rich in heart-healthy fats, plenty of vitamins and minerals, and they're actually really high in fiber. Fiber helps us to feel full. It also helps prevent blood sugar spikes. All around a good thing for our health. So what I did is I just cut longwise and then acrosswise to kind of make some cubes. And we're gonna add this in. If you were gonna wait and serve this maybe tomorrow, wait and do the avocado last, because as you know, avocado gets brown really quickly and really easily. And so you'd wanna save that for the last step, of course. Let's see if this trick works. I heard that you could just take the avocado and pop it, and that seed will just pop out, and it worked pretty well actually. So that's another way to not get injured. You don't want to hit a knife in there and miss and hit your nice soft hands. So we'll go ahead and put the other half of our avocado in. Avocado, although it's heart-healthy fats, they can be pretty high in calories. In general, a serving of avocado is about 1/4 to 1/3 of an avocado, depending on the size. But since it's high in fat, it's also higher in calories. So it's just definitely something to be aware of when you're adding avocados in your diet, but they sure are delicious. So we've got our avocado in. And now we've got our dressing. I'm gonna go ahead and add in all of our dressing. And since there's plenty of lime juice in there, it's gonna help our avocado from turning brown, hopefully. Add it all in there. This is a nice make-ahead dish that you could take to a picnic. You could serve it warm if your quinoa was still warm, or if you wanted to heat up your beans or your corn ahead of time. We're just gonna stir that all together, nice and gently. It's looking beautiful. All those colors, the red onion, I can smell the cilantro. Super quick and easy salad to put together on a warm day so you don't have to heat up your oven, right? Stir it all in, and look at that. Our beautiful salad is complete. I will dish myself up some. Our quinoa salad with creamy cilantro dressing is all finished. Today I've served mine on top of a bed of kale. It's sauteed kale that I sauteed with a little bit of garlic, and it is delicious. My cousin turned me on to that. So I put about 2/3 cup of our salad on top of my kale. This is a great recipe because you can serve it on top of lettuce to turn it into a salad. You can serve it on top of steamed vegetables or sauteed vegetables. You could wrap it up into a burrito. And another one of my favorite ways is to just use it as a dip, and you could use chips or some veggies and just dip it in and enjoy. I think I'll take a taste. Get a little bit of everything here. I'm tasting the creaminess of the dressing and the avocado, the crispness from the corn and from the red onion. Delicious. I'm so glad that you could join me for this episode of Cooking with Kayla. And remember, be gentle with yourself. See you next time.